Hey everyone, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee L, we're going to be showing you how to install the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver. Before we get into that, let's just take a minute though. We'll check this out and make sure it's going to be the right setup for you. So right off the bat, probably one of my favorite things about this hitch is the fact that it's going to sit behind the bumper, which is going to allow you to take the panel and reinstall it whenever you're not using the hitch. And so it's going to be super clean and look factory, which kind of brings you to my next point. If you've never removed this panel, probably not a bad idea to check behind there and make sure you don't have a hitch already from the factory, because believe it or not, we do see that from time to time. But with that said, having a hitch back here going to open up your opportunities on what you're going to be able to do with your Jeep. You know, whether you're trying to pull a trailer around or use accessories, this could allow you to do that. There are a couple other hitches available for the Grand Cherokee L, so I just want to compare them real quick. There's another CURT hitch that is pretty much the same exact thing as this one here. Really the only difference with that is going to be how it attaches to the vehicle's frame. And I've installed a couple of those. Honestly, I would prefer this one over the other CURT. And I say it because with the other one, uses some nuts that are attached to the hitch, and you got to line the bolts up, and the chances of that one not lining up perfectly, at least for my personal experience, is much greater than how this one's set up. This has several holes you put bolts through and nuts on the other side. So that's the only difference there when it comes to the two CURT hitches. There's also a draw tight hitch available. It's going to be extremely similar to, you know, it'll sit behind this panel and everything. Really the main difference with that one is it's going to have a little bit higher tongue weight capacities. So that's not to take away from the CURT though. This is going to have really high numbers as well and pretty much let you use whatever type of accessory that you want. The hitch is going to have a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is good. Extremely common size, a lot of stuff will work with it. It is going to use that standard 5/8 pin and clip. One doesn't come with the hitch. If you need one, you can always get it here at eTrailer. A lot of times too, if you end up buying a new accessory, they'll come with one. That's something to look out for there. As far as the safety chain openings go, they're not huge by any means, but they're going to be large enough to allow you to use just about any size hook that your trailer might have on it. As far as the weight capacities go, it's going to have a maximum gross tongue weight rating of 750 pounds. We kind of talked about this a minute ago. That should be more than enough for just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier. Give you an example there. And for the maximum gross trailer weight rating, that's going to be 7,500 pounds, which is the amount of weight pulling on the hitch. That is the weight of your trailer plus anything that you might have in or on it. This can be used with the weight distribution system, which is a separate component. And what happens when you use that, it's going to keep your Jeep and your trailer level whenever you're towing it down the road. It's pretty popular on enclosed trailers, campers, things of that nature. So if that's something you plan on doing, might be worth checking out. With that in mind though, I do always like to recommend, always a good idea to grab your Jeep's owner's manual. That way you can check in there and make sure that your SUV can handle that amount of weight safely. We'll grab a couple measurements now, and these will help us figure out what type of accessories will work best. If you go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening, it's going to be about 22 inches, so really good ground clearance. But if you're going to be pulling a trailer, chances are pretty good you can use a ball mount that has a drop. Probably that 4 to 6 inch range work well for most people. And honestly, it might not be bad just to get an adjustable type ball mount. That way you can really dial everything in depending on your trailer. From the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of the rear bumper, that's only going to be about 2 inches, which is really good. So you shouldn't run into any issues here, but if need be, you can use that to help figure out exactly if any of those folding type accessories that you might have can be stored upright without hitting the back of your Jeep. When it comes down to it, a hitch you really can't go wrong with. You know, it looks good. It fits well and is going to be able to handle just about anything you want to throw at it, so can't really ask for too much more. As far as the installation goes, you are going to have to remove the rear fascia. It's really not too bad though. You know, there's not a ton of fasteners that you got to pull off and things like that. Everything comes apart pretty good. With that in mind too, if you are going to be installing trailer wiring, it's a really good idea to install that at the same time as a hitch, because with the fascia off, you have a lot more room to work, and it just makes sense to do it that way. And that's exactly what we did here today. If you're someone who don't really feel like messing with the installation or don't have the time or place, I get it. You can always use our dealer locator, and hopefully that can kind of get you going in the right direction as far as finding a shop that can do it for you. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, we'll pull into the garage and get started on this now. To begin our installation, we're gonna be here at the back of our Jeep, and you get the fascia removed, so open up your hatch. And then right here in this area, we're gonna have a little cover that we can pop off to get to a fastener. To open this up, you can get a small screwdriver, kind of just pry behind it there to release it. And there's gonna be a 10mm bolt we can pull out. And from this point on, whatever we do to one side of our Jeep, we'll also do to the other side, because it'll be set up the same way. Moving up, we'll have this plastic cover here. There's a pushpin style fastener. With these, I like to go behind it with a trim tool or even a flathead screwdriver. That'll pop it free. We can just set this off to the side. And in many cases, it's going to be easier to remove your tail light, especially if you're going to be doing trailer wiring as well, because that's a step that you're going to have to do. So it's entirely up to you, but we're going to remove ours. And to do that, there's a T30 Torx bit screw. And pull that out. We should be able to grab our tail light here and start to work it free. So with these, what you want to do is kind of pull back and out, because what's holding it in are these little alignment pins, and that's the direction that they're going. So we'll just unplug our light here. You'll have red tab, pull back on it, push down on the middle tab, that'll release it, and then we can set our light off to the side. Moving underneath of our Jeep, along the edge of the fascia, on each side you're going to have two 10mm head bolts. Moving to our rear wheel wells, I went ahead and used some painter's tape around the seams that we're going to be working with. That way we don't accidentally scratch up the paint or anything like that. And there's going to be a total of 4 8mm head screws, just like this one, that kind of run down. In our case, we have 2 up top, and then 2 are actually hidden behind this mud flap. So we'll have to take the mud flap off. This is the first Jeep that I've personally seen that have these mud flaps, so yours probably won't. So you might not need to bother with these. But that said, we'll grab our 8mm first. Pull these 2 screws out. And then our mud flap has 4 T15 Torx bit screws in it. Once you get this one off, for a lot of you at home there, this should be enough to get to the fasteners here, but there is a rivet that's holding the mud flap on completely on the bottom side. If you don't have a tool to put a rivet back in, this would be good enough to get to those bolts, but to make it easier to see and work with, we're gonna go ahead and get this rivet out as well. Here's that rivet, and if you're gonna remove yours, the way you get them out is just take a drill bit, a little bit bigger than the hole in the rivet. And drill it out. Back to the wheel well, there's our other 2 screws that we got. So like I said, if you didn't have that mud flap, you want to have this plastic piece or nothing here, just be 2 screws. We got our 8mm, pull those out. We'll set our little mud flat bracket off to the side. And then you can grab your wheel well liner, kind of just tuck that back for now. At this point, this piece of wheel well trim here, we can unsnap that. And so if you just start at the bottom, kind of work it loose, and then I'm gonna come in behind. There's some clips that you can squeeze on to get this to release here. So I pop a couple more out, we'll get a better look at them, and I'll show you what I'm doing. So with these green ones, you kind of come in from the back and just squeeze on them like that while you're pulling out, and that'll release them. And pretty much the same thing with these style, just kind of push in and pull out there, and we'll get those released. And we're just going to work up until about here. We just need to get access to a fastener behind this piece of trim. So there's that bolt, and something you can do too, I just take a piece of foam or towel or something, you kind of put this in here to keep it pulled out some. But that bolt, you can remove that with a 10mm. If you look inside of the wheel well now, you have this electrical connector, and just to make it easier to see what we're doing and get to, I'm going to pry it off of that piece of metal there. And how you can disconnect it, you can push down on that white tab there to get them released. With an extra set of hands, we can get our fascia removed. And what you want to do is start at the corner here and just start to release it. And it comes apart fairly easy, actually. Sometimes if you run into this issue, which we didn't, but just to give you an example, if this is kind of stuck on there, what you can do is take a trim tool or a small screwdriver and kind of carefully just kind of lift up while you're pulling it out, and that should release it. We'll double check for any other wiring, which we're all good here, so we'll just set our fascia off to the side. On the side of our vehicle above our muffler, we're going to have an exhaust hanger held in place with two 13mm head bolts. Go ahead and get those pulled out. We can get our bumper beam removed, and on the side of our frame rail, we're going to have two 21mm head bolts. And what I like to do, so get this one out here. What I like to do is leave this one in hand tight, just a couple of threads. That way when we get all the bolts out, there will still be something supporting it. And like that, and we'll have one more on the bottom side. That out. I'll support our bumper beam. Get the last two out that are hand tight. And this will simply just pull out from our frame rails. Grab our hitch, and these are going to go in the frame rails, and you want to be using the holes that I marked there with the yellow dot. Those are going to line up with the existing holes in the frame. So work this into position here. And then you can take a carriage bolt, come in from the back, put that through. With that one started, you can take a flange nut and just get it started hand tight on each side. That way the hitch will be supported and in position. You'll have an attachment point on the bottom. So carriage bolt, put that in, get it lined up, get the flange nut started. We're going to be using that attachment point as well. And if you're having a hard time doing how I'm doing it, you know, just going in through the frame, you can use the pull wires that they give you. So you take the coiled end of it, put it through that way. Then you want to get it pulled out of the frame. Thread the carriage bolt onto it and pull it through to get it started like that. So that works just fine too. And another flange nut here to get all of them started. We'll come back with a 3/4 inch socket now and snug everything down. I'm going to make sure and come back with a torque wrench now and tighten down all the hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. I went ahead and re-secured our exhaust the opposite way that we removed it. And as far as getting the hitch on, this is it, right? There's really nothing more to it. With that said, this would be a great opportunity to install your trailer wiring. Because with everything apart, it makes it so much easier to see and route wires and everything else. So that's what I recommend doing if you're going to be installing trailer wiring. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So once I have that done, we'll come back and wrap everything up, get the fascia back in place and everything else. So I'm done now with our trailer wiring. That's all ready to go. And what we can do now is get our fascia put back together the opposite way that we removed it. When you go to put this back together, not really a whole lot to it. You just want to take your time and make sure everything lines up. The fascia went back together just fine. Didn't have to make any modifications or anything along those lines. And with it all put back together, that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver on our 2022 Jeep Grand Cherokee L.